Okay, hey guys, so we are done with 8th grade math and all of the material in it. So from this point forward, we're going to go ahead and review some of those big ideas that we covered in 8th grade, but they're also going to reappear in Math 1. So the two things we're going to focus on is linear functions, and if you remember, it's talking about the slope, the y-intercept, finding the slope from different things such as 2 points or from a graph and so on. And then the other topic is going to be systems of linear equations. These two topics are basically going to be 2 units in Math 1, and it's going to be pretty important for you. So let's go ahead and take the last few, lessons that we have left before the end of the year to review, these topics to help you for next year, okay? So if you want to go ahead and turn to page 101, okay? And today's lesson is going to review, finding the slope and the y-intercept from an equation, from 2 points, and from a graph, okay? And of course, if you turn to this page and you notice that you're missing information, go ahead and take the time to fill it in, okay? And make sure you have the correct information as what I have on my book, okay? So let's start with the equations. Identify the slope and the y-intercept. So if you notice, this is my slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b, okay? You should remember that the slope is the number beside the x, or with the x, which is the -4 in this case. And then the y-intercept is the number without the x, which is the 5, okay? And don't forget that it's the same thing as y equals mx plus b. Your m is your slope, and your b is your y-intercept, okay? And basically, remember the slope is just the rate of change, rise over run, and that type of stuff. And the y-intercept is also known as the initial value, the starting value, okay, all that stuff. Let's move on to number 2. If you notice, we have 0.5x minus 3 equals y. You can also write it out like this. And because the number beside the x is your slope, therefore your slope is 0.5 or 0.5. And then the number without the x is known as your y-intercept. And in this situation, my y-intercept is -3. Okay? Moving on to number 3, identify the slope. Remember, when you're finding the slope between 2 points, you have to set up a table. So I took my first point, 0, 4, put it on my table, followed by my second point, 3, 4. Now remember, when you're finding the slope from 2 points, you have to find the difference of the right side and the difference of the left side, okay? And the reason we do that is because we're finding the differences of the y over the differences of the x, which is basically the right side over the left, also known as the rise over the run. Okay, because if you think about when you rise, you're going up the y-axis, so you're finding the difference on the y-axis. And when you're running, you're going across across, so the x values. So you're finding the difference of the x values. Okay, so here we go. Start with the right side. The bottom number minus the top number. So 4 minus 4 is 0. Put that down for your right side, okay? And remember, slope is a fraction unless you simplify it, okay? And then the left side, we have 3 minus 0, which is just 3. So that will be your left side number. So the right side over the left, 0 over 3. If you simplify that, you can use any calculator that you have. If you type in 0 divided by 3, you should get 0. You're also welcome to use Desmos. If you type in 0 divided by 3, it will give you 0. Okay. Number 4, identify the slope. Once again, when I'm finding the slope between 2 points, I need to set up my table. My first order pair goes at the top, followed by my second order pair. And now remember, we're finding the differences of the y over the differences of the x. So basically the right side over the left. So let's subtract the numbers on the right side. Start with the bottom number always. 7 minus 8. So 7 minus 8 is -1. There we go. Now let's do the left side. Start with the bottom number. 3 minus a -1. So 3 minus -1 gives me 4. So there goes 4. So your final answer is negative 1/4. If you type that into your calculator or Desmos, chances are it's probably going to give you negative 0.25. It really doesn't matter which answer, whether it's a decimal or a fraction, as long as you recognize both of them, okay? Now for the last part, for each graph, identify the slope and the y-intercept. Remember that the y-intercept is where the line crosses the y-axis, okay? And your slope is basically the rise over the run. So let's start with this graph and let's start off by identifying the y-intercept. So clearly if my line kept going and then we extend that line, you're going to see that my line crosses the y-axis at 0. So therefore my y-intercept is 0. Now for the slope, you're going to do rise over run. You always want to pick 2 points that are at the corner of each grid, okay? So I picked this one, which was at 0, 0, and then this one that was at 2, 110. So first thing I'm going to do is the rise. So if you do the rise, that's 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 110. So my rise is 110. Now for my run is going to be 1, 2. Okay. Of course, 110 divided by 2 is 55. And this is a positive 55 because my line is increasing. It's going upstairs. So that means the slope is positive 55. Okay. And now another thing is, if you notice here, I'm counting by tens. And here I'm counting by ones. Just be careful when you're counting. Okay. Now for the graph, for the second graph. First thing is first, my y-intercept. This line crosses the y-axis at positive 1. So that means my y-intercept is 1. Or we can also write it out as 0, 1. Okay? So these two are two different ways of writing out the y-intercept. And now the slope. The slope is the rise over the run. I'm going to pick this point right here, which was the y-intercept, and this point down here. I want to choose points that go through the corner of the grids, okay? Those are the only ones I can use. So here we go. The rise is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then my run is 1. And because my line is decreasing, that means my slope has to be negative. So that's why I added a negative. Now, negative 5 divided by 1 is negative 5. So therefore, my slope is negative 5. Okay. Now, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to let me know. But just remember that our SchoolNet is just going to be problems from this page. Okay.